What is up, everybody? It is Friday, July 30th at 2 p.m. EDT here in sunny Florida. Unbelievable that it is almost August. Now, my live streams on Fridays are being rebranded as Bullish on Bitcoin. So that's what we'll be doing every single Friday. And I will always have a guest to chat about Bitcoin. But Bullish on Bitcoin really describes me and does not necessarily describe them. They get to have their own opinions, but I think everybody knows where I stand long term. But today, I'm really honored to have an incredibly special guest, legendary trader, Peter Brandt. Peter, welcome.
You bet, Scott. It's always good to chat with you. And by the way, you've got to be dead to really be a legend in my book. So hopefully I'm not quite legendary yet.
You told me that. I think last time I called you a legend, you told me the same thing. And apparently I didn't learn my lesson. So I'm sorry about that. So listen, really interestingly, like I sort of said at the beginning, it's called Bullish on Bitcoin. I'm bullish on Bitcoin, but I think that there's always a misinterpretation of the terms bullish and bearish when people don't specify a time frame. Do you agree?
Yeah, not only do I agree that bullishness or bearishness, it really has to be in perspective of a time frame. It also has to be distinguished from what position might be. It's possible for me to be a short-term bear on what I think the charts look like on Bitcoin, and at the same time have a substantial ownership position holding for the long term. So, bullishness and bearishness really are pretty much meaningless terms. I learned a long time ago at the trade when somebody said they're bullish or bearish, I'd want to know, so what's your position and where do you say you're wrong? Because that really is going to really communicate to me a lot more information than somebody just simply using bullish or bearish as generic terms that really don't mean much at all.
Yeah, absolutely. So you sent me a few charts so we can talk specifically about Bitcoin. You also sent me ETH and silver charts. I'm going to go ahead and pull up your weekly chart, and I guess you can give us some perspective on where you stand from a macro view. Can you see that?
Yeah, I think, yeah, I sure do. Thanks, Scott. Yeah, I mean, Bitcoin goes up, it goes down. I mean, it goes up one week, down the next week. But, I have remained with a pretty steady longer term perspective for quite some time. I mean, the reality is that Bitcoin has had no fewer than 4 parabolic advances during its lifetime. If you go back even further than this chart, you'll find additional parabolic advances, and that's on a log scale. I can't find a single other chart of any accepted asset class in commodities or foreign exchange or stocks that can really make the same claim of having these parabolic advances one after another, elevating us to new levels. The long-term trend in Bitcoin is clearly up. It is clearly much higher. And I really have not changed my mind in years about my overall opinion in Bitcoin. This may not make some of your listeners happy, but I've always said I think there's a 50% chance of Bitcoin going to whatever number you want to use. I mean, back at the beginning, it was a 50% chance of going to 50,000. We've been there, 100,000, 250,000, a million, you name it. And there's a 50% chance of Bitcoin going to zero or basically zero, depending on all kinds of things, including new innovation. I mean, somebody who says Bitcoin is the be all and end all of all time really does not give humanity much credit. Solutions, all kinds of problems in the future, but based on what we know.
Well, it seems that we just lost Peter there. Hopefully he'll sign back in. Seems that he was having some rough internet. We can take a look for a moment I have almost effectively the exact same chart, which is really interesting. I don't know if you guys can see this, but it looks almost exactly like the chart that he had there, which is this macro monthly channel that I've been talking about endlessly, right? Starting all the way back in 2013, had the touch on the low at the 2020 and then up. But I'm going to bring Peter back in. He's here and we'll look at his chart again. Go ahead,
yeah,
Peter.
I think I lost you there for a minute, Scott.
Yeah,
we had
your
a
internet
disruption of technology. Yeah. No, I mean, we're still very much in a parabolic advance. I think the key thing is people get hung up on, $100 up, $100 down, $1,000 up, $10,000 up, $10,000 down. We're in a long-term bull trend. It's going to take a substantial amount for me to change my opinion on that. I think Bitcoin is definitely a store of value that far exceeds what any fiat currency can offer. That does not mean to say that Bitcoin will go up every day, every week, every month, even every year, although it has, of course, but for the most part, a couple exceptions. But, we will see volatility. One thing for sure in Bitcoin is that it's going to be volatile.
So what are you looking at here on this this weekly chart?
Well, I think that if we look at the parabolic curve that we currently have, and that's based off of the December 2018 lows and as its anchor point, and also connecting to the March 2020 closing low, we could slip all the way back to 20,000 or even slightly below and still be just checking up on the current parabolic advance. So Bitcoin can have some room to the downside. Personally, I think there's a good chance that this 30,000 or so low may hold us, but I'm not sure we're out of the woods yet and cannot maybe penetrate that low. My money is on the fact that that low is going to hold for now, but that doesn't mean to say that we may not slip through that. And if we do, we could see some, additional liquidation. Really, when you look at it, we know that there's a tremendous demand for Bitcoin at $30,000. Whenever we go down there near there, we get a bounce. But there's also a humongous supply, obviously, of Bitcoin at approximately the 39.5 to 41 level. We've been up there 17 times. I can't remember what the date was of the sharp down day where we saw the huge spike of volume, but we remained within that day's range ever since. The high of that day and the low of that day have basically held this market ever since. So we have a very, very good fix right now on where major supply comes in and where major demand comes in. And we'll have to wait and see what it's going to take for the market to move outside of the bounds of that range.
Right, but based on this chart here, assuming it keeps the parabolic move, or even if it bounces off the bottom of that channel, you would assume that it'll eventually travel to the top of this channel, which is six-figure Bitcoin, correct?
Yeah, that's where my money is. My money's betting on that.
It's funny because people have the perception, as I said, that maybe you're bearish because you talk about 20,000 or 30,000 again being possible, but clearly you're very bullish if you zoom out.
Oh, absolutely. That's the amazing thing to me, Scott, is I may put a chart up on Twitter that I believe represents bearish chart construction. That does not mean I'm abandoning ship. That does not mean that I'm not holding Bitcoin at the same time. I am just trying to be as transparent as possible with what I see in the charts relative to what I consider to be the traditional rules of classical charting principles.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to go into your daily chart here. So now that we sort of have that macro picture, you sent me this daily chart, which very clearly shows that range that we all know we've been in from effectively 30 to 40, give or take, right?
Yeah, again, you can't be precise. So the market here recently broke through $30,000 and people panicked. That doesn't mean that the market's going to crumble and go down to 20. We have to draw these lines that represent the bounds of a trading range with thick magic markers. We can't draw them with a thin, fine point pen or the computer representation thereof. The market gets, like I mentioned, 17 days we can look at. We've gone up and tested that 39.5 and above level. Supply comes in every time. 30,000 or so, demand comes in every time. We've remained within the trading range of the high and low of the first big down day, which represents the big spike in volume that we see. One thing we do know is huge volume in Bitcoin is either starting volume that happens at the beginning of a move or stopping volume, which means it's the termination of the move that came in at the volume and will remain there for a while. been sideways, chopping up and down. It's tough for me to want to get excited one way or the other about an up day or a down day as long as this trading range remains in place.
If you were trying, I mean, not zoomed out, we obviously know that you're spot long Bitcoin, but if you were zoomed in a bit, what would be the criteria at this point for you to trigger any sort of trade? Whether you actually would or not, what would you be looking for in theory?
Well, I've got some Bitcoin that, sub 35, I'll probably scramble out of as long as we can stay above 35. That represents a holding on a portion of what I have. I think another portion down there, 28 and a half to 29. And, there's some Bitcoin that I'm into zero because it's my insurance policy against the eventual destruction of fiat currency. And so, I'm a buyer in the long-term narrative that paper currency eventually will become worthless. I took a look at U.S. dollars. The year I was born are now worth about 7 cents. And there's no reason to believe that people who are born today, when they reach my age, which is a while, I have to admit, but the current dollar will probably be worth 7 cents at that point. So that's the reality: is government issued currency is eventually going to basically going to be destroyed. And so how do we prevent against that? And there's a holding of Bitcoin that I have. That's my stake in the fact that I think Bitcoin is a great insurance policy that protects other assets that I own that are dollar denominated.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I obviously see also that you have this sort of complex head and shoulders pattern drawn. In your mind, has that reached its target when it, penetrated 30 or got to those lows, or do you think that has more downside? I may have lost Peter there again. I'm not sure. He seems to be frozen. Peter's not at his home computer here, and so obviously we're dealing with some mild technological issues here. I will once again pop back into my charts until he appears. But it's just funny to get confluence with him because I basically have the same range drawn on my charts that he has drawn on his, which he has here on the daily. What I've been watching actually, and I'm assuming he's going to pop back in momentarily, hopefully, is this little bull flag forming here. We had these bearish divergences that were overbought. Now we finally have some hidden bullish divergence to cancel it. So that's what I'm sort of looking for. I'm hoping we can get Peter back in here. It seems that maybe he's working again. So I'm going back to his daily chart. Can you hear me, Peter? Not so sure.
Yeah, I think I'm back on, Scott.
You keep freezing, unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah. It may be on my end, but you were coming in on the complex head and shoulders top that we have. That was definitely head and shoulders. It was complex because we had a double head, but and so I always have to look and say, what was the last chart construction that was clear, and think in terms of recency. And so, given that fact, most congestion areas prove to be continuation in nature, which leads me to some degree to believe that this rectangle that we're currently forming has a chance to be a continuation pattern because there was a head and shoulders top that preceded it. That would imply that we could break out to the downside. I would protect myself on a certain portion of my holdings should that happen. But we're up in the area where I wouldn't be surprised to see supply come back in. Should we burst through the top, I do not think we go straight to the moon. I think more than likely.
It looks like we're losing Peter there again, unfortunately, guys. I'm so sorry about this. Definitely was not in the plans to be having some major tech issues here, but I will continue. I'm assuming that what he was going to say is that if we break through the top of this range here, which I would tend to agree with, if we get above that we'll start talking about probably ranging again in the low 40s or even popping back into the range. I think there's sort of a consensus that might be the case. I got two Peters there. Okay, Peter, you're back. I had double there for a minute. Can you hear me?
We good here again, Scott? Do you have me on?
I think so temporarily. You've I think you've got a pretty bad internet connection, so you keep cutting out. Oh, and he's gone. And he's gone. I'm checking out what you guys are saying in the chat, and it's pretty funny. Talking about his 56K modem. See that? And the needing subtitles and the bad sound. So yes, we understand that. He's coming back in now, and we will continue to try. Here you are again, Peter.
Yeah, I'm sorry if that's a problem here on my end, Scott.
Yeah, you were saying that we could potentially break, if we broke above this rectangle, you would not necessarily be looking for a move straight to the moon, was the last thing you sort of said.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we can really get a clean break on the closing basis above that upper boundary of the rectangle, it would give me more confidence to believe that, you know, the low is in. You know, we've tested that 30,000 or slightly below several times. I already believe, based I think on my longer term bias, that we have the low in place.
I think so too.
But can we get a strong close? That would give me a little more confidence in that.
Yeah, I mean, in general, you were talking about the idea that, you know, we're sort of ranging sideways in this rectangle after that head and shoulders. I mean, in general, this is consolidation after a bearish move, right? So you have to be leaning slightly bearish in general when you're consolidating sideways after a move down rather than a move up, right? And he's gone. Gone. Maybe it's a 14.4 modem. I don't know. I think he's on an iPad, to be quite honest with you guys. But yeah, I think we all basically agree here that long-term Bitcoin is bullish, which I love to see from Peter, because I think there's a stigma that he's bearish about it. And he was the one who kind of said, I mean, he really did call the top with the laser eyes and everything else that was happening towards the top. I'm going to, if we can get him back, I know you guys have some questions here. So please ask Peter about the lack of trading volume confirmation versus periods pre-June we see now. Puts his view at risk. We can see how the option market has shifted, shorts liquidated. I'll ask him if he manages to come back. He may just give up on us. He may give up. And if he does, I'll tell you why I'm bullish on Bitcoin, which is good enough. So let me just send a message, see if he's coming back. If not, then we will go. I mean, he is a international man of mystery, Peter. He's a ghost. He actually just disappeared, and maybe he's coming back. He's coming back. We can try it again, Peter. I think it's your internet.
Yeah, I'm sorry for these problems, yeah. Scott. We're at our summer residence, which is in Minnesota. We don't have quite the dependable link that we do in our my winter or main residence, which is in Arizona. So I fully accept the fact that this is probably a problem on my end. But anyway, I think we're talking about this range-bound nature of the market that, you know, we have a pretty clean delineation of where supply is, where demand is. Should we exhaust the supply at the 40,000 or so level, I think market will trade up until it finds another level of supply. But I think for me, that would give me greater confidence if we can make that thrust up, that this 30,000 or so level on the bottom is probably going to be the low that we will have in the next phase of Bitcoin's grand bull market run.
I'll take it. I will absolutely take it. So I know also you had some thoughts on Ethereum. Do you mind if I pull up your Ethereum chart and take a quick look at that?
Oh, no, not at all.
There we go.
Yeah, certainly. I think this is really a unique market because, again, we have a market here where we have the delineation of supply and demand, as noted on the market, that at 1,700 to 1,725 has been very strong demand. We've been down there. Each time we're down there, it bounces. But now here we have a slightly different thing than we have in the case of Bitcoin, and that is that supply is not fixed at some level, but supply is finding a lower and lower level. So, you know, the first bounce, we couldn't quite make it up to. Second bounce that we had, which was basically in early July, we've come back to that level, which is a good sign. But should the market turn lower, then what we see is that supply is really more aggressive than demand. And so we
think we lost him again. Rats. But I think he was going to tell us that this is a descending triangle, but it looks like price has already broken out of the top of it. I'm curious to look at my ETH USD chart. I didn't have it pulled up. Yeah, there's some big bearish divergence on ETH too, right here. But I'm going to keep his up and hope that he manages to come back. There he is. Yep. This is challenging, but it's fun because I get to try to fill in the blanks, which is a good time for me. So yeah, you were saying.
Yeah. It certainly is challenging. Yeah, it certainly is, Scott. Thanks for your patience.
Oh, please.
Patience with me. My ability to use technology probably matches.
What's up, guys? Unbelievable. So yeah, hey, listen, the internet is what it is. There's nothing that we can do about that. I'm assuming that after we take a look at this ETH chart, if he pops back in, that we're probably going to have to pop out, and then I will just continue on my own, and you guys can stick around for that. But I'm going to give him one more chance to pop back in. And if he does, we'll let him give some parting thoughts, conclusion, and we will move on with the stream. Yeah, Starlink. I don't know how it's this bad to have a bad connection in the USA year 2021. I mean, I think he's in the middle of Minnesota somewhere. Yeah. The wife is using the dang toaster again. You guys are funny. You guys are so, this is so, I mean, hey, listen, nothing I could do. We will do this again, definitely, when he's back in Arizona for sure. But I'm going to let him give his, I'm going to bring him back in a second. I see him up here. Peter, I'm going to go ahead and let you give parting thoughts because I don't think it's going to hold up for too long. And it's fine. We've done 20 minutes. I know you had to go in a bit anyways.
Yeah, no, I think, again, my apologies. I've turned off my Wi-Fi, so I'm coming to you through my cellular data, and that may end up being a little more stable than my Wi-Fi. But yeah, Bitcoin trend is up. I mean, but I don't encourage anybody to have leveraged positions. I think people need to be in Bitcoin at this stage based on their long-term view of Bitcoin store value, not based on laser eyes on the computer. I mean, let's get rid of the laser eyes, folks here. No, let's own Bitcoin because Bitcoin is a solid store of value long-term. And that means that we want to own more sometimes than other times. And we're to the point now when we get into the low 30s that it's time to, for those who are smart enough to sell above 50, it's time to own it again. And so, the ownership wants to be, one's position wants to be lean in the direction of ownership, of buying, not selling. Here, and when we get in the low 30s, now we probably will have some resistance at 40, but long term, I want to own Bitcoin. It doesn't mean to say we may not slip lower, but it does mean that I do not want to own leverage Bitcoins. I want to own spot position as as protection against the destruction of fiat currency, as an insurance policy.
And he's gone. Yeah, you guys ever watch the South Park where he goes to the bank and he's like, "Yeah, and we're gonna deposit your $100. We're gonna invest it in a few mutual funds," and it's gone. That's us right now, and it's gone. But he's back. He's back. Don't worry, we got him again. One more time. You're in again.
Wow.
Back again. Yeah, it doesn't matter what you use. The internet gods are conspiring against you.
Yeah, they sure are. They sure are. They're not going to conspire against Bitcoin forever, though. Just keep that in mind.
No, they're not. They're not. Well, Peter, thank you so much for doing this. I'm going to let you go and save you the hassle of having to sign back in and off. I think that this was absolutely great. And I think that it actually clarifies a lot of ideas for people on what it really means to be maybe an investor versus a trader, or, at what time frame you should be looking at different things. And he's gone. And he's gone. It's amazing. So, yeah, and honestly, if you guys have not, I had a full Trade Gods episode with Peter. We had some tech issues there too, actually, when we did that from about 7 or 8 months ago. And Bitcoin was like 15 grand or 14 grand or something. And he was extremely bullish, talking about 50, 60. And I have to give Peter all the credit in the world, because he did say when it was hitting 40s and 50s that laser eyes were a top signal. I believe he had a tweet that said, there's going to be a reckoning for crypto and that it was going to be a complete washout and we were going to see, people losing fortunes and all those things. I think that we've seen that, but it's nice to know that does not change the long-term bullish view, and that he also has a fundamental view on the market itself as a hedge against inflation, against dollar printing, and all of those things. So that's not actually something I knew. I thought he was approaching it strictly as a trader. So listen, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to kind of take it. I have time. I have time to spend with you. So I'm just gonna do this myself. I mean, it's what we usually do, right? So here, like, I see everyone talking about link. So I'm gonna pull up the link chart. Not the link to good internet. That's not what we're talking about. Is link flying today? I haven't really been. Oh, look at that. Look at that. Well, there you go. That's chain link right now. And that's link on the Bitcoin pair. So it must look good on the USDT pair. So, I mean, this is a beautiful bounce. We were talking about it here actually just the other day. And I said, we need to break this line. Well, that's one way to break it, right? This bodes well, I would say. This ETH, this bodes well for alts at the moment and kind of lends some credence to the idea that we might chop sideways a little bit on Bitcoin here below resistance and start to see some real movement. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty convincing. You can see though, this was perfect support. I drew this rectangle here the other day and I said, listen, I don't think we're going to lose that. And if you thought this was a bear flag, which I saw a lot of people sort of talking about, which would have been something, oh shit, I'm having tech problems too, like this, and it's gone. Then this is really nice to see that that's not a bear flag. So listen, this should be then targeting, I would say this resistance here. A Chad entry would be if you get one of these, right? May not happen, but that's definitely what you look for. And on the Link USD pair, it's coming into the EQ of this lower channel. So I would say we're at least going to $23, and then it should, with this bounce off the channel lows, this should be heading to like $28. That looks pretty damn good. I'm going to come over and see what you guys are commenting on, so I can catch up on what the chat was. Is this true? 41 billion hedge fund Golden Tree has added Bitcoin to its balance sheet. That's pretty good. Has been trying to break 40K all week. Yeah, I mean, I showed, there's been bearish divergence in almost every time frame, but now they've been replaced by hidden bullish divergences. You can see here. So we had the 4 hour, this very clear bearish divergence, and that was with RSI the highest it's been all year, 86, right? Really, really high. So inevitable, right? Any push was not going to pass that RSI, which meant bear div. So I was saying, listen, yeah, that's a signal, but we're going to end up with hidden bullish divergence. Basically, if it drops and stops anywhere above 36, and that's what's happened. You can see it on the 12 hour, not confirmed yet. This has 5 more hours, hidden bullish. And this obviously, same here. So, when you see a bearish divergence like that, the hidden bullish divergence can be a weak signal. It doesn't necessarily mean that price is going to go back up. It should. But to me, it means that the bear div is no longer of concern, which is kind of how I talk about it all the time. Let me see what else you guys have up here. I know there were a lot of questions, and I kind of started missing. I'm glad you like the quality of the channel. It's better than the quality of the audio. He said, don't trade leverage. Do you personally trade leverage, Scott? I don't anymore. I used to trade leverage a lot. I traded tons of leverage in Forex, tons of leverage in Bitcoin. I aggressively shorted near the 20K top in 2018. I don't really, I make a point not to short Bitcoin too often, and almost never now, but I've talked about this a lot. When I first came into the market, I was here solely as a trader. Like, really, I didn't understand the use case of Bitcoin. I came to make money, so I was trading with pretty heavy leverage back then. Anyone who is around in 2018 probably remembers that as an American, I got kicked off BitMEX. One day I went to open my account. There was a warning that I was American, and all of my money was gone, which I never got back. So I had my BitMEX account liquidated with no open position, and the funds were gone. So that sort of taught me a lesson there. And then as I became more compelled about the use case of Bitcoin, I stopped just really having the urge to short it. I will tell you, and I've said this, you guys know that I'm a mega bull. I get that that stigma about myself. But listen, like shorting 40 and longing 30 has been the easiest trade in the world for the last 2.5 months, right? And I think that I very clearly said on Twitter 2 days ago, I said, listen, we're euphoric at resistance again. There's going to be bear divs. Be careful. I'm not saying it'll drop further. I don't know. But like if I was leverage trading, I would have shorted the shit out of this the last few days. I'm still super bullish long term, but I would have shorted it the last few days. Can you explain hidden bullish divergence? Sure. This is a bear div. Okay. I could pull up a cheat sheet, I'm sure, but I can just explain it to you. It's better, whatever. Okay. Any bear divs or hidden bear divs are measured only on highs, right? So here's your bearish divergence. A lower high in RSI, a higher high in price. A hidden bearish divergence would be if there was a higher high on the oscillator and a lower high in price. So you measure bullish divergences on the bottom, right? We'll make that blue to make it clear. So bottoms. So look, this normally a bullish divergence. Here's a bullish divergence. Lower low on price, higher low on the RSI. That's an indication that buying pressure is rising while price is decreasing, which means you get a pop and a reversion to the mean, right? I mean, you can see them everywhere. Like, look, this is huge at the bottoms. I have a chart of somewhere of the 4 hour of hundreds of these. It's been the most reliable indicator of top and bottom. A hidden divergence on the bottom is a higher low on price and a lower low on your oscillator, in this case, RSI. And that's a continuation signal, but not a bottom signal. But to me, it basically effectively cancels this, right? So you have price rising, making a higher low, while RSI makes a lower low. And interestingly, this is bouncing right at the bull bear level of about 50 RSI, right? Look, that's exactly perfect. So as much as I was thinking, hey, 36, 35, 37, something like that, maybe a retest of the range mids or something, this could really bounce here. There's a lot of signals that maybe that was all the downside. This is somewhat reset RSI already, and now we have sort of the confirmation. I was thinking that on the bear divs, and now those bear divs are a bit irrelevant in my mind. D3T is crying, laughing. I don't know why, but I'm glad. Glad you're having fun, even if it's at my expense. I don't know. So I'm just scrolling up through the comments that I missed before, because there were quite a lot of them. Should one convert some Bitcoin to ETH? That's a personal decision. Yeah, it looks like I got the most of it. You guys are talking about Starlink and the internet. You guys are very, very funny. Easy to lose internet signal, blah, blah. Okay, well, if you have any fresh questions, now would be the time to ask them. The only thing scaring you is the strength of the dollar. Let's pull it up, right? Because I don't know about that. I haven't looked today, so it's bouncing today, but it did break this ascending wedge. Listen, I think that, like, again, bullish, bearish is all about time frame. So let's start on the monthly. Dollar looks horrible on the monthly. Horrible in my mind, right? Had a macro ascending channel since 2010. And this is the dollar index, everyone. So, and why does it matter? Let me give a preface. By the way, I don't even need these. I don't know why I'm wearing these things. The dollar generally has an inverse correlation to other assets. So when the dollar rises, stocks go down. When the dollar goes down, stocks go up. Metals, and to some degree, Bitcoin as well, right? So this is in a channel since the Great Recession, 2010, ascending. This was 2020 of March of 2020. The breakdown of this channel. This should eventually trickle down here and give us targets way, way, way lower, right? Also, this could end up being a bit of a shooting star monthly candle right here. When you come into the daily, since that breakdown, we do have this sort of descending channel that broke down, right? Not fully confirmed because it's up, down, down, up. You would want to see up, down, and then the breakout. So that does show strength, but locally, you kind of had this ascending wedge that broke down, which I've shared a few times. I don't think the dollar looks bullish unless it breaks above here. I'll show you why. I think it truly looks bullish if you get a double bottom, which would require this. You have the double bottom is not confirmed until you break the neckline between, which is the highest swing point between them, the swing high. So below 93.437, I'm not concerned about the dollar particularly. That's a long story short kind of thing. But listen, I made a video about Bitcoin. Listen, we get lucky sometimes. It's done exactly kind of what I said. Listen, this could hold. I talked to Peter about this before the stream. If this monthly candle closes like this in a day and 6 hours, we have three wicks down showing demand and a hold of the EQ of the channel. That targets these 6-figure numbers, because if you hold the EQ as support, you flipped to support, you should be heading to the top of the channel. I know it sounds absurd, but that's how you get those 6-figure targets. We had this breakout and I said, look, how about a retest of the top of this channel as support? That's what we got. People have been talking about the 200 MA, right? This is the 200 MA here, which is way above. We've broken the 50, which we have been below basically since the drop from 56,000. We're now above that 50 MA. But if you're an EMA guy, which I just had up, I should have just looked at that, we're above all of them, right? There's the 50, 21, who cares, and the 200, right? That's a lot of confluence of support. So, and B bands I was talking about, literally just yesterday. You can see when you get out ahead of the B bands on top like this was December. We had the same sort of tightening. This was even tighter here. This is the tightest B bands have been in years. You break up, consolidate back inside, and then shoot up. So I drew this, break up. Now it's consolidating inside. So I expect it to shoot up. So I'm really feeling, honestly, even if it comes down to 36, it doesn't matter. I'm just saying, I think we finish this little correction and then we head back up. That's just my bias. That is just my bias. But yes, that monthly candle is really, really potentially nice. If you missed Peter, you can rewind, and I hope you don't mind if it sounds like this, because it was very broken. But, that's what happened. Options expiry is done today. All options have already expired. Dollar and Bitcoin went down together from March to May. I don't see the correlation anymore, but historically, people liked to say that Bitcoin and the stock market were correlated. That's not true. If you wanted to make that case, you could say that they both, to some degree, are inversely correlated to the dollar. That's more the logical argument. Hi, Scott. When using EMAs, which one works best with what time frames? None of them work per se. This is technical analysis. We're all making guesses. In my opinion, the only reason to use MAs or EMAs is if you see a lot of other people using them and you understand that bots, algorithms, and traders are placing orders on them. I had never heard of a 21 EMA or a 9 EMA or all these like ridiculous numbers until I got into crypto. Before that, I had only ever really seen 50, 100, and 200. So those are the ones that I've always looked at, 200 and 50. Yes, my bullish bias never changes long term because there's no reason not to be bullish on Bitcoin. But like I said, I would have shorted 40K or anything above it, if I was trading with leverage. If the USD is a world reserve standard currency, it is the benchmark for everything else, isn't it? Well, yes, it is. And that's a really important distinction, because here's the DXY again, right? What is the DXY? It's not actually the value of the dollar. It's the value of the dollar versus a basket of other currencies. That's important to note, because you can still be total shit, but if you're less total shit than all the other currencies, you'll go up, right? So I think that is really important. Yes, MACD has more obscure EMAs, so that's part of it. Yeah, so the bottom line being there, I don't know where that question just went, is that the dollar can be strong versus everything else while still endlessly printing, and the dollar index can go up, right? Would you pull out of that short immediately the second you see that hidden bullish divergence, or would you let it play out and see what happens, or wait further confirmation? I would have probably, and if I was doing it, I would have probably taken like 50% off the table, moved my stop into profit, and let it ride. That's what I would do. So I'm a big fan of moving stops into profit anyways. And so, yeah. Thoughts on Covalent? I think it's a really, really cool project. I can't really get into it too deeply now, but I think from what I've heard and sort of the vibe around Covalent, it's going to be one of the most important projects around. Let me see what else we got here. All coins have reached the bottom and now buying is the right decision. Maybe. And that all depends on whether you're talking about in USD terms or in Bitcoin terms. Because I think if Bitcoin drops hard or goes up hard, that altcoins will suffer on their Bitcoin pairs, and most of us trade to stack sats. But if Bitcoin goes up and the altcoin pairs suffer, I think the USDT pairs of alts will continue to go up just less than Bitcoin. But in my mind, in that situation, I would rather be in Bitcoin. What do you look for when trying to determine the peak of a bull run? Well, first of all, I was a bit euphoric like everyone else and sort of missed the signals, but I can show you. And it was pretty obvious. We did not have the blow off top that a lot of people were looking for. But as Peter sort of pointed out, actually, let's do it on the line chart. As Peter sort of pointed out, that head and shoulders up there, people are talking about a head and shoulders now. These were the heads and shoulders. This is not a head and shoulders. This would target like 0. And this move up basically invalidated that anyways, right? But let me show you this because I love, first of all, RSI always eventually makes the trip from overbought to oversold, right? Overbought, all the way down to oversold, always does. That can happen with it moving sideways, up and down, but price generally looks to follow. But these were our signals. And I did point them out at the time. I just didn't give them enough credit because, you know, it was on the daily and they take a long time to play out. But you had very clear bearish divergence here, followed by very clear bearish divergence here, followed by very clear bearish divergence here, right? And so and the problem is, you know, you could have the first one, you could have gotten out at 56, I guess, actually. So not really a problem, and continued up. And then the major drop, right? Major drop. So we came all the way down from overbought to oversold. I mean, I thought that I did talk about, you know, coming down to 40, 42. I thought 42 would hold and it didn't, which was sort of the surprise, was the 40 to 30 drop in my mind. But then you just get oversold, right? And you start to see bullish divergences, right? You had one here, right? Small one, right? And these are sort of starting to be the bottoming signals. On the daily, they can play out quite a lot. That's the point. But look, all of this was bullish divergence here to here. Here to here was bullish divergence. And this entire thing, although over a longer time frame than you would think, this is all coming out of overbought bullish divergence, oversold. But now we do have to be cautious. We have hit overbought, right? Doesn't mean it has to drop immediately. We can see how many times it hit overbought here, right? But as this rounds out like this with those bearish divergences, that should have been a very clear top signal in retrospect. It was just easy to get caught up in the fundamental narratives saying, you know, institutional floor, super cycle, laser eyes, all the things that we talk about there. Yeah, Elon got us over 42, Elon back under 42. I've talked about this a lot, right? I mean, this is this chart, right? Where is it? This was the natural pump, micro strategy, everything from basically 20. You know, we broke 20 and went to 42. Then we consolidated. This is Tesla's buy, right? $1.5 billion Tesla buy. This, interestingly, was when this wick right here is when Elon Musk removed hashtag Bitcoin from his profile. And people got very bearish there. And I pointed out that we now had this perfect descending channel caused by that exact wick. If you guys were around, Elon Musk, I guess, pushed us through, or at least that's the perception. And then he sold some Bitcoin and said that Tesla wasn't going to take it. We broke down and now we're back to as if he never existed, right? Kind of same pattern, just at a bottom instead of a top. Really interesting when you consider it in that way. When am I talking about Elon timing? Here, right here. This was when Elon removed this candle right here. January 29th, I believe, was when he removed hashtag Bitcoin from his profile. So it went way up. He removed it. It dropped. People started to panic. But see, it held the EQ of that channel, which it formed, and then came up. Perfect retest. Tesla buys. That was exactly how it went. Still trying to figure out why Elon Musk has so much influence on crypto. He has so much influence on everything. That's the misnomer and the place where we get a bad rap. First of all, now he tweets about Doge and nothing happens. So I would say that influence has somewhat diminished. But like if he tweeted about any lower cap stock, it would absolutely go bananas, crypto or otherwise, right? Underlying problem with technical analysis now, volume confirmation, it's poor relative. Take out new leverage rules. Being short a dull market is silly. Yeah, I mean, you don't short a dull market for sure. I agree with that. But I don't think the volume's so poor anymore. I mean, it's all relative, right? If you look back here, we've got almost the same volume as sort of, I mean, a little lower, but almost the same volume as the bulk of this bull run. The problem is we had a huge spike when it dropped, right? And we have not gotten relatively back to that. So I guess volume is all relative, but you can only compare it to what you've just seen. And on this rise, we saw an increase in volume here, right? So it's all relative compared to here. But yes, we'd like to see like this kind of volume on the next major breakout. I agree with that. Sorry, Scott, another question. When looking for divergence, is there any time frame that you would avoid using? I like the 4, 6, 12 hour. But the bottom line here, this should state it more plainly. The smaller the time frame, the smaller the effect, right? So if you see a bullish divergence on the hourly, that's great for a scalp that might be for the next 5 or 6 hours, right? Then if I see it on the hourly, that's when I look for it on the 4 hour where it becomes more convincing. If you see it on the 4 hour, if you get 10, 20, 30 candles out of that, then that's even more. And that if that compounds up to a 6 or 12 or daily, then it's when you start to get the huge moves, right? What do you think about ETH? Well, I showed the chart a little bit before, but I think I've been pretty outspoken. I love Bitcoin. I think it's the most important asset of our generation. But as a trader trying to make money, if that's your thing, I would definitely say ETH has way more upside. I'd much easily more see a 10x from ETH from this point than a 10x from Bitcoin. I think there's so much fundamentally being built on Ethereum, EIP 1.5, the London fork, the deflationary aspect, ETH 2.0 coming, the explosion of DeFi. There's so many reasons to believe in ETH. My perspective on ADA, I can pull up a chart. I don't really have a fundamental perspective on it because in my mind, it's a really cool platform that they don't even have smart contracts yet. So it's just not that interesting to me until it starts to prove its fundamental value. But I do think it's built well. It's got a fanatical community and it's fast, right? And this looks like it's coming off the range lows, ADA Bitcoin, much like ETH did here, right? And you guys might, if you were here, I had a long that I posted when it was getting very quote unquote bearish. This was my long position on ETH. It was something like this. It's all in my videos, so you can know that I'm not lying. It was something like this, right? And it hit here, it hit the target and then dropped. So maybe we come back down to the lows, but ADA kind of looks similar to when it was at the lows. That's my point, which is not a bad thing, right? Because as Peter and I talked about, this is at the top of a move. So when you're ranging sideways, you assume you'll eventually break up, more likely. And take a look at the Amazon chart, which I share every time I want to talk about this. This is a year of consolidation for Amazon in a range sideways before breaking up, right? So maybe ADA does something very similar and eventually breaks the top. On the USDT pair, this is a very clear breakout. 1, 2, 3, at least 3, kind of 4 touches on this descending line and a break. Just not very convincing on the volume, as people have pointed out. But I think ADA looks fine here, but as an investment, I don't know. That's up to you. They haven't done it yet for me. They haven't done enough. Do you think EIP 559 will cause ETH to go up with time? I think it's priced in that it's going to happen. People have been buying because of it forever. It's kind of a buy the rumor, sell the news. You might even see it go down immediately when it's launched, but the deflationary effect will make price rise over time. So with a long-term view, yes, I think it will make price rise. I looked at Chainlink just a little while ago. Regarding volume, can these bots literally see when we making big trades, 1 million plus? My trades always go the opposite way no matter what. I see in my favor. No, I don't think, I could be wrong, but I don't think you're specifically being targeted by bots. I think that you're placing your orders in the most predictable zones, most likely, right? When you talk about your stops getting swept, you're probably shorting right below support and longing right above resistance, or placing your stops in the very, very obvious areas for bots. I can't speak to that. You can tell me if that's true or not. But that's usually what happens. But no, I don't think that they are specifically targeting your trade flow, because there's plenty of people who are trading with 1 million plus orders that are not seeing that happen. So I think it probably means you need to, in my opinion, probably reduce your position size and move your orders a bit to give you a bit more cushion. And then I think you will find that probably won't happen. I don't think the delay will impact the market. Like I said, I think everyone's expecting it. Last I saw it was coming in August. It was supposed to already be in July, so we'll see. Right. Most people don't know it was created over 2 years ago, right? Obviously, the controversy was this year and the votes and everything, but these are old ideas. DCA into ETH, assuming best time to buy is now. In my opinion, the best time to buy an asset that you think will go up with time is always now. And the second best, they always say the best time to buy was when the price was such and such, but the second best time to buy is now. Dollar cost averaging. I buy Ethereum every single day. Every single day I buy Ethereum. I do the same with Bitcoin. These are the two that I believe in buying all the time. So yes, that would be my strategy is DCA into anything. And you say is the best time to buy in now. Well, dollar cost averaging, the best time is always. That's the point of dollar cost averaging. You don't have to guess what the price of the market is. Help, I keep buying high and selling low. Where are my profits? Probably in someone else's wallet, it seems like. Yeah. Thoughts on leverage FTX tokens on Uniswap like ETHBull? I don't trade them because it's just another way of adding more risk to your trades, in my opinion, but some people like them. Let me see, Michael, what do you say here? Weekly RSI with a breakout, next diagonal resistance around 60-ish, quite a ways to go. MACD crossing, Stoke reset, all very bullish and allows Bitcoin to run. I haven't looked at that weekly RSI. Let me take a look at that. I haven't looked at that. Well, all these. I did not set a time frame for all these arrows, so let me get rid of them. Yeah, I mean, I can see what you're talking about without even really having to zoom in and look at it, but we'll do it. So I'm not sure looking at this that it's broken out, right? Maybe you're talking about from here. That I see. To draw that one. Yeah, RSI. If you guys don't know, this is something I'd love to do, but you can draw a pattern on your oscillator, RSI, MACD, etc., OBV that looks just like the pattern on your chart, and then if you get that breakout, it tends to precede the breakout in price. You can also see we had massive bearish divergence here on the weekly, all right, which takes a long time to play out, but I'm assuming that's what you're talking about there, right? Yeah, I already looked at Link, guys. Everyone's telling me it's breaking out. I know. E-gold chart, it's had no volume since last time I broke $100. Let me look. Most altcoins don't have volume. Yeah, this looks like it's just ranging. I can't get excited about this. Looks just like the Bitcoin chart did, except for at a top. Yeah, I mean, this is fine, but you're just floating between. I mean, by the way, I hold e-gold. It's just that chart doesn't look like so compelling at this exact moment in my mind. Let's see what else we got here. I'm going to be done with the charts for a minute. I think NFTs are the future of a lot of things outside of art. That doesn't mean you should buy everything because it's an NFT. Finding value in an NFT is very, very difficult to know which one, but I think that NFTs are the future of a lot of things outside of art and collectibles, like mortgages, medical records, car titles, stocks, every single thing that can be transferred from one person to another that currently requires a third party can be made into an NFT and transferred directly. So to me, that is pretty huge. Guys, since I was planning to have Peter on for a little longer, I'm going to go ahead and exit. It's almost 3 o'clock. I appreciate you guys showing up. I apologize for the technical issues, but I think that that will not be an issue in the future. I hope that all of you have an amazing weekend because I'm intending to. Next week, I'm going to kind of be around, not as much, because I'm on permanent vacation trying to be, but I'll be here and I'll be making videos and we'll be doing our thing. Until next week, guys, I really appreciate you being here. Peace.
That's dope.